Let's start with today's objectives. We have three, and they're basically important to anyone who's on the program today, both retailers and manufacturers. For the retailers, what we want to do is explain what customer management is and is not, and how it brings value. And for manufacturers, we want to set up a situation where you can see an opportunity to extend your work with retailers beyond the category and product focus into a focus where you're growing the spending of common customers. So we've got value for all parties, and we're looking forward basically to delivering on that for you. In order to do that, we're going to have two additional speakers, and I'm really the moderator. Jim Dibble has guided retail and manufacturers around the world in a range of different topics, from implementing category management to computerized inventory replenishment. He's done thought leadership and strategy at IRI and was a founding member at EYC. He also, for a time, led Nielsen's initiatives in retail solution activity for retailers. Jean-Marc began his career with Mars & Company, and that allowed him to consult with a broad cross-section of Fortune 500 companies, again around the world. He then moved to OC&C Strategy Consultants, where his main focus was on M&A and cost reduction. He also spent some time, I guess, with Jim at IRI, where he was busy delivering next generation insights into the hands of leading retailers. We've had loyalty data around for a long time. As a matter of fact, the grocery industry was probably the first of the retail segments to use customer identified transaction data, sometimes called loyalty data. But now it's interesting that some very big players are coming back on the scene, leveraging more complete loyalty sort of / customer management programs. For example, Target within the last month and a half has introduced their new Circle loyalty program, which in addition to all the things you'd expect, includes an opportunity for customer input into the process. And Best Buy has drawn a sharp line around the membership value in their loyalty program by making it the basis for a price guarantee as we approach Black Friday. As we move into the subject, there are basically four things that we want to talk about today in terms of customer management that should prepare you to decide basically what you want to do with customer management and how you'd like to proceed. Hopefully at the end of this, will give you a basis for making a good decision in terms of how and why this fits in to your business. So let's start with the very first question. And I guess this probably will go to Jean-Marc. What is customer management? How does it differ from what retailers are currently doing? And what do you see as the definition that will eventually evolve as hopefully an industry standard?
Thanks, Bill, and thanks everyone for being here. So I thought I'd give you a definition first, and we'll spend the rest of the webinar unpacking what it really means with some examples. So customer management is the process of organizing and managing a retailer's portfolio of customers as a strategic asset to achieve enhanced business results by attracting, keeping, and growing customers. So a bit of a mouthful. So to understand what this means, let's start with the idea of organizing and managing a portfolio of customers. So organizing and managing a portfolio of customers begins with understanding customer differences, and they are significant. Any retailer with customer identified purchase data can capture these differences. So the first thing we do is group customers into buckets according to how they behave. This allows us to understand the customer base as a whole and where people fall. When we do this exercise, the first lesson is that we shouldn't treat everyone the same way. It is important to design different strategies for different groups of customers. It also allows us to execute down to each individual customer. So let's take a single customer and see how this works. So here we have Emily. She is a silver customer, meaning she's fairly loyal to the retailer. She falls in the deluxe segment, so she looks for quality in the food that she buys. She favors premium products. There are children in the household. We know this from the products that she buys. She is responsive to discounts. Her purchases have been stable over time. She is a customer that the retailer seeks to develop because the retailer believes there's an opportunity to shift Emily and customers like Emily from silver to gold. She doesn't use the in-store kiosk. She does use the circular, and she shops weekly. So that's Emily. Now let's imagine that the retailer wants to put in place an omni-channel value proposition for Emily and thousands of customers like Emily. So what would Emily see in that case? So in the circular, she might receive deals on organic products. If she goes to the website, she'll see premium packaged foods presented first on the home page. On her phone, she'll receive an offer for Tide. Why Tide? Because the retailer might notice some gaps in her purchases, and there happens to be a Walmart nearby. So perhaps there's an opportunity to recapture some share of wallet. Regarding the assortment, there are a lot of Emily's in that store, so the retailer might expand the range of organic foods and premium store brands in that store specifically, not in other stores with a different customer base. And in terms of price, the retailer might lower the price of detergent, again, to defend against Walmart. So a couple of observations. Number one, this is a comprehensive approach that includes all the touch points acting in concert. Number two, personalization becomes part of a broader strategy to grow the customer. It is not just a way to deliver more relevant offers, as it's often used today. And then thirdly, it's really a change in focus for the business, which instead of selling one category to as many customers as possible, the focus is now on selling to one customer as many categories and services as possible over their lifetime, using all the touch points at the retailer's disposal. Back to you, Bill. Does that cover the point?
It really does, and opens up the full richness of what we're talking about. So to our next question, how does customer management improve business results? And Jim, maybe we can turn to you. You've been working with retailers such as Safeway and Albertsons, Food Lion, Del Hayes. What can you tell us about this question and the answer you've seen play out in retail environments?
Thank you, Bill. What we've learned is really here on the screen, that customer management improves business results by driving profitable growth, and it does this through more loyal best customers who visit more often, have larger baskets, and shop the store more broadly by embedding customer intelligence into day-to-day marketing and merchandising. That's a lot in one statement, so let me break it down. Loyal, when we're talking about, means dependable and reliable, which is important for the retailer to have customers that are dependable, predictable as a revenue base from which it runs its business. Best refers to meaning the top. Typically, a grocery retailer's top 10% of the customers are responsible for over half of their total revenue. Thus, any change to these customers dramatically affects the retailer's top and bottom line. And what affects the top and bottom line is getting these customers to visit more often, as a winning a trip from a competitor is becoming a bigger and bigger factor in a retailer's success. And then once you have the customer in the store, it's about getting them to buy larger baskets and getting them to shop the store more broadly. And the real differentiator of successful retailers is that they're doing this by embedding the customer intelligence into the day-to-day marketing and merchandising activities of their organization. Bill, now let's examine how a retailer that we've worked with have achieved sustainable growth from customer management by taking out ineffective spending and reinvesting. The chart that we're looking at now shows the different revenue potentials of the different marketing and merchandising activities a retailer can do. The top half shows the growth in revenue, while the bottom half shows the reduction in cost. And it goes from left to right from those activities that can provide you the most revenue components. So if we take a look now, Bill, at the what happens when Walmart comes to town, we'll look specifically at target marketing in depth to show how that it provides revenue growth. Our experience has shown that sustained target marketing growth only occurs when the retailer determines a strategy and chooses the goals that they wish to accomplish. So let me provide you an example. We were working with a retailer who was losing nearly 20% of its share when Walmart entered one of its markets. At the time, we had just started working with that retailer. And at that point, most of the people in the retailer didn't want to be the first people working with us. But out of desperation, as nothing else was working, the retailer's task force came to us for help. Looking at the customer data, we were able to determine the number and types of customers who were most likely to defect to Walmart. For example, this retailer, it was the budget, easy meals, and old-fashioned customer segments that were most likely to defect. Digging deeper into these customers, we were able to identify which categories were the first that they would quit buying at the retailer, and we were able to see how the switching of the purchasing of these products at Walmart actually resulted in the retailer losing complete basket trips of its customers. What we did next was to identify the customers worth investing in, to retain, and then identify those at-risk categories that these customers were needed to be more price competitive on. We then developed and implemented a targeted retention program aimed at the high-risk, high-value customers. The result was the retailer minimized Walmart's impact on sales and share by more than half, and accomplished this with no additional investment. In wrapping up personalization, it was the greatest growth potential for the retailer. But a key point I think needs to be made here is that our experience, backed by industry studies, states that personalization only delivers about 35% of the total potential that a retailer from getting customer insights. That the other 65% comes from the things that we've listed here before, such as pricing, promotion, availability. And a quick look at pricing. It's a little known secret that Kroger's first years of successful growth with dunnhumby was largely driven from their customer-driven pricing. While we don't have time today to cover it, we will do it in future webinars, or the details and examples are available in our book. But in conclusion, we've all been in these meetings where vendors come in and present 100% growth opportunities. And yes, sometimes you can get those types of growth opportunities on a particular promotion or shelf set or event. But the real incremental sustainable numbers that we have seen and been a part of from customer management are 3 to 5% year-on-year revenue growth. I hope that covered what you were asking for, Bill.
Yeah, I think it really does. And I just want to sort of actively ask back. It's sounding to me like personalization and some of the executional tactics of customer management really need to be integrated into traditional merchandising tactics like pricing and promotion to get the kind of benefits you just described. So integrating those things and implementing them together seems like it's the answer that you've been finding works well in the marketplace. Am I listening properly there?
No, I think you're nailing it, which is basically the way to make this sticky, to make sure that the people that are actually doing the work that the customer sees requires a business process and allows the metrics and activities to make sure that it's executed. And that's key for this being achieved.
Well, one of the things that I think has occasionally been frustrating is that some of the tools that retailers are offered are logically, they make huge sense, but they aren't necessarily easy to implement. And the reason they're not easy to implement is because there's no process. So can you say why and tell us a little more about the business process necessary to get the full value from customer management?
Sure. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to do work with retailers from all over the world that add customer data. And what separates the really successful retailers from the rest is not the quality or the amount of their customer data, nor even their tools or technology, but rather, did they have a process, like you just said, consisting of structured set of activities that were designed for the retailer to get, keep, and grow customers. And for those peers of mine on the webinar, this would seem familiar because the industry was in a very similar situation in the early 1990s when even companies like Kroger was still organized around buyers. And it took a book on category management by Nielsen defining a new process that eventually opened the floodgate to its adoption. So what are you seeing on the screen now? Be interested to actually have a poll. I'm sorry, if you go back one, Bill. It's just, are some of you looking to the left and seeing ears and seeing a rabbit, or are others you looking to the left and seeing a bill and seeing a duck? And hopefully now all of you will be able to see both. Now, what does that have to do with retailing? Well, retailers view and manage their business primarily through the lens of products. And when your business through the lens of customers, you gain a whole new perspective on your business. You'll see growth opportunities that were invisible before. And we all need to remember, just because we don't see it doesn't mean our competitors don't see it. Which leads me to the next point, which what gets measured also gets planned, managed, and resourced. We've had the ability to go in and this is basically where we've come up with our business process. This is what we put in the book. It's from our experience, the 5-step business process of understanding customers, their strategy, planning, execution, and monitoring, drive the ability for the organization to get behind and get the achievements we want. The 3 enablers in this case are the information technology, customer segmentation, and analytics and organization capabilities, all of which we plan into getting into much greater detail in a upcoming webinar. We go to the next. Category management works has really evolved very little since it started. Category plans are done independently with specific goals for each category and what they're to accomplish, with little direction on what needs to be done from the retailer's key customer groups. For example, it's not uncommon for a retailer to have the wine category manager plan to drive the business with budget wines, the cheese category manager emphasizing high-end cheeses, and the cracker manager emphasizing family packs. With all these category managers fighting for the same resources to sell their products to as many people as possible. What happens in this world, though, is that you don't have value propositions for your customers in place. So another way of being able to look at this is to take your category management process, if we go to the next one, and be able to take your customers and layer that and pivot that over the top and have those views being taken into account on the category managers going forward. Not different in many ways from what retailers are doing today with category management. A lot of retailers have the organization come through and say, here's my key performance items that you need to look at, or here's the ones we need to be put in price. It's the same sort of method, so it's not alien for the retailers are doing. A retailer who is doing a great job of being able to have this category management and customer management working together is Amazon. Because let's look at it. Amazon isn't winning because they have better products. Amazon is winning because they sell products better. And this comes from Amazon's ability to know more about their customers and turn that knowledge into action better than anyone else. And in a nutshell, Bill, that is what customer management process is all about.
You make a pretty persuasive case. You know, it is interesting to see how category management has taken us a good distance, but not all the way. And now with it would be fair to say overlay of customer management, we really are in a position to be competitive with somebody like Amazon in terms of selling it in a more effective fashion.
That's a very good way of putting it. You need someone to be advocating for the customers, so there's an overlay onto the customer, onto the category management and store operations.
Oh, thank you. So the fourth and last point we wanted to cover today is what are the capabilities that a retailer needs to make what Jim has just described happen? Jean-Marc, you want to pick that up?
Yes, I'll try to answer the question. So here are the things that are needed to conduct category management. The colored bars represent where we think the retail industry stands today. So firstly, you need customer identified purchase data. Most retailers have it, so we'll give them a green light. To make sense of the data, you need a data platform, segmentation, metrics, and analytics. Here, it depends on the retailer. Some have more advanced capabilities, others not so much. Most retailers have gaps in these areas, but these are things that are generally available and increasingly affordable in the marketplace. So we'll give them a yellow light. What's nearly always lacking is what's in red. A repeatable business process like the one Jim described, one that includes customer strategy, objectives, an implementation plan, and resources directed at the customer. Customer culture, also lacking. We see it in some companies, but generally it fails to be adequately supported at the top, and it fails to permeate the whole organization. An organization is lacking because there's no one responsible for customer performance the same way you have people responsible for category performance today. And then supplier collaboration, conversations are still very product and category focused rather than focused on growing mutual best customers. So here are the areas where we see gaps. And if you flip to the next one, this is an example from a customer audit we did at a large retailer in the US. The statements in green are things that nearly everyone agreed on. Having customer insights was important. We know our best customers, and there's significant growth opportunity among existing customers. The statements in red really show that the organization was not set up to drive that growth. There's a lack of training, customer intelligence is not used to make decisions, and there are no organizational incentives to drive customer performance. So this was a good illustration of the general assessment we made on the left side of the page. Also telling is the fact that there isn't always widespread consensus around these questions, even within the same retailer. What we see is that these percentages sometimes aren't that close to 0% or 100% because it depends who you ask. It's typical, for example, for customer management to believe that the organization is aligned around the customer, when in fact the people lower in the organization aren't clear on their role in executing against that, and the processes and reward systems don't support customer performance. So today, We have an exciting initiative to bring this type of audits to the industry as a whole. It's called the Customer Readiness Assessment. And I'll hand things back to Bill, who's going to say a few words about that.
Before I do that, could you just elaborate a bit more on that sort of biggest red area, which is customer culture? I think you've probably hit on points of it as you went through the questions, but process we get, organization you really nailed, supplier collaboration we at least understand in principle, but what are you driving at with customer culture?
Can I jump in there for 1 minute, John Mark?
Sure.
The biggest thing that keeps retailers from being able to do this is not having senior executive support. If you don't have support at the top level, you're not going to be able to be customer driven the way we're discussing.
Okay. And any, Jean-Paul, you want to add to that, or just say amen and endorse?
No, I think that's true. I also think that the advocates for the customer often reside in the marketing teams when the decisions at the shelf are made by the category management organization. So you have a Chinese wall, which implies that the decisions that are made by marketing, or the insights that are generated by marketing, do not always percolate through into the merchandising teams and are not reflected in the pricing, promotion, and assortment decisions that are actually made in the store.
Nice point.
Yeah, I think you may be being charitable in that assessment, given what we've seen. So let me just recap some next steps and ways for anyone who's interested to get more information. Jean-Paul has already introduced the idea that there is a customer readiness assessment survey available. You'll find links to that in the survey that comes out right afterwards, as well as embedded in the PDF of the presentation deck. Invite anybody who's interested to run through that and see how you compare with some of the benchmarks that are available. In addition to that, and we really, I'm impressed with the fact that everything from A to Z, the entire process, as well as the executional detail and tremendous amount of results, is available in an open fashion in a book that these two gentlemen have just finished. And you can see the kind of endorsement from the previous CEO of Nielsen in terms of what that book makes available. I can't imagine how much faster category management would have been adopted if something similar had been available at the time. And then lastly, we wanted to let you know in a bit more than a month, we're going to dive back into this entire process with a lot more detail. We would like to have as many people who are interested have taken the assessment in advance of that, although that's certainly not required. But on December 12th, we're going to come back with a lot more specifics for those who are interested. And I hope that includes manufacturers as well as retailers. So I want to definitely thank our two contributors and mentors here. Jim and John Mark, appreciate it.